Coming in at number 5, we have Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is the oldest Disney cartoon, with him being the mascot of the Walt Disney Company, with him being created back in 1928. The famous anthropomorphic mouse wears red shorts, large yellow shoes, and white gloves, and is one of the world's most recognizable characters. Back in 1955, a television series was created about the character titled The Mickey Mouse Club, running up until 1996. Mickey generally appears alongside his girlfriend Minnie Mouse, his pet dog Pluto, his friends Donald Duck and Goofy, and his nemesis Pete, among others. Though originally crafted as a cheeky, lovable rogue, he has since become a nice guy, usually seen as an honest and bodacious hero. However, views may change about him when you see this piece of art posted by Fallen Guardian 2 on Reddit. The image shows Mickey Mouse as a butcher, chopping up pieces of pig, and presumably his friends. The artist aptly titled it, "I don't know about this meat, it has a bit of a goofy aftertaste." Yikes, Mickey has lost his damn mind. Honestly, if the Mickey Mouse Club went down this route, I'd be an avid viewer. What a concept, a murderous Mickey Mouse. R.I.P. Goofy. In at number 4, we have Barney. Oh, Barney, I loved him growing up. I had every movie on VHS, with Barney 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons being a personal fave. Just saying. Anyway, the older I've gotten, the less and less I trust this giant pink purple dinosaur, and I'm apparently not the only one who feels this way. Some backstory though. Barney, the dinosaur, is the main protagonist of Barney and Friends, and a 200 million year old, 6 foot tall, purple pink dinosaur with a green belly and green spots on his back, and his tail and yellow toes. This dude comes to life through a child's imagination, and is best known for his silly and optimistic attitude. I don't know what it is about Barney, but since getting older I just don't trust him anymore. This dude is sinister and we all know it. But thanks to Reddit user Dominic_V, we get to see what that looks like in the flesh. In his art piece, he created a Godzilla-sized Barney who is prowling the streets of a metropolitan city, presumably looking for children to feast upon. He also looks as though he is brainwashing the entire world, forcing us to believe his weird ideologies. So not to mention... I can't say it. I can't say it. Sometimes saying nothing is better than saying anything at all. Sometimes. In at number 3, we have Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon, known in Japan as Pretty Soldier, is a 1992 Japanese anime television series based on the manga of the same name written by Naoko Takeuchi that was published back in 1991. The series follows the adventures of the protagonist Usagi Toshikino, a middle school student who was given the power to become the titular Sailor Soldier. If I'm butchering these names, just know I've never watched this show, so sue me. Joined by other sailor soldiers, they defend Earth against an assortment of evil villains. The anime also parallels the maturation of Usagi from an emotional middle school girl to a responsible young adult. Usagi is the superheroine who is also the main protagonist of the series. She is a carefree schoolgirl who can transform into Sailor Moon, the de facto leader of the sailor soldiers. Initially believing herself to be an ordinary girl, she is later revealed to be the reincarnated form of the Princess of the Moon Kingdom, and she subsequently discovers her original name, Princess Serenity. For the most part, we all grew up watching Sailor Moon. Not me though. Never watched a single episode in my life, and I'm great. I turned out great. And dreaming that we could one day be like Usagi. However, thanks to this art piece by Reddit user Mark Skull, I no longer feel that way. Here she is depicted as some kind of eldritch horror, a monster that is uncanny, unearthly, and supernatural. To be honest, part of me thinks I actually prefer her this way. If the show was this, maybe I would have watched it. Just saying. Missed opportunity. I've got no time for Sailor Moon. You know who I also don't have time for? The Powerpuff Girls, so never liked them. Coming in at number 2, I'm Sorry Luigi, I Missed. Both Mario and Luigi hail from video games created and released by Nintendo, created by prominent game designer Shigeru Miyamoto. Now Mario is the company's mascot, as well as being the eponymous protagonist of the series. He has appeared in over 200 video games since his creation. Mario is depicted as a short, pudgy Italian plumber who resides in the Mushroom Kingdom, with his adventures usually centering upon the rescuing of Princess Peach from the Koopa villain Bowser. Along the way, Mario was joined by his fraternal twin brother and sidekick Luigi. Luigi is the slighter, younger but taller brother to Mario and appears in many games throughout the Mario franchise, often as the sidekick to his older brother. Originally developed as a palette swap of Mario with a green colour scheme instead of red, Luigi has since developed a personality and style of his own. As his role in the Mario series progressed, Luigi has since evolved into a physically distinct character, taller and thinner than his brother. Now Yoshi, on the other hand, is a fictional dinosaur who also appears alongside the two brothers as their sidekick, but thanks to Reddit user Young Drew, I don't think I'll ever be able to look at him the same way again. In this art piece, he is depicted as a Xenomorph from the Alien franchise, the fictional endoparasitoid extraterrestrial species and one of the deadliest of all known alien species. In the art piece, he has taken Mario, Luigi and Toad hostage, with Luigi already a goner. He's completely dead. There's an alien in his mouth. One awful way to go out. R.I.P. Luigi. It's actually quite beautiful, to be honest. Better than any game. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have SpongeBob. You were all so thrilled that I did include SpongeBob on the first part of our list, but considering I love to ruin lives and crush dreams, I decided to include him on part 2. No need to thank me, you're welcome. SpongeBob is of course the titular character from the Nickelodeon series SpongeBob SquarePants, a comedy cartoon that chronicles the adventures and endeavours of SpongeBob and his aquatic friends in the fictional underwater city of Bikini Bottom. Its success has made it one of the longest running animated series in history. It is also the highest rated series to air on Nickelodeon, and Viacom CBS Domestic Media Networks' most distributed property. That being said, I dislike this show with a passion, and I particularly dislike SpongeBob himself. He is a childish sea sponge who lives in a pineapple under the sea, with his pet snail Gary. He works as a fry cook at the Krusty Krab, a job which he is exceptionally skilled at. However, I don't care about that, I still dislike him. He is a good-natured sponge and loves to hang out with his best friend Patrick, his teacher Mrs. Puffin, and his boss Mr. Krabs. All well and good, but like I said, I have no time for this sea sponge. He is sinister, we all know it. But I'm here to expose him right here and right now. One Reddit user by the name of the Paranoid Artist also gets the same vibe as me, because he created this incredibly disturbing art piece which shows an overweight SpongeBob with a slew of empty beer cans next to him. He appears to be angry, judging by his intense expression and bulging red eyes. Honestly, I can't look at this picture for longer than a few seconds because I have a feeling this might possess someone. Feels like a chain letter. If you don't pass it on, something terrible will happen to you and your entire family. Anyway, I'm off to share this with every person I know, just in case. Also because I hate everyone, and everyone needs to look at it.
And kicking us off at number 5, we've got CatDog. CatDog is an abomination and you can't convince me otherwise. It's literally a cat and a dog fused at the midsection. Whatever genetic experiment spawned this must have been gruesome. They share a body, but it's not so simple as them always acting together and experiencing the same things. No. How do they use the bathroom? Why are they so stretchy? Tell me how they have 2 separate immune systems. I need to know. These are all things that my gigantic, pure as snow child brain couldn't comprehend way back in the day. In fact, I think most folks were so focused on the goofy aspects of the show that they totally glossed over some of the more disturbing fare. See, CatDog is a lot more body horror than one might remember. Of course, they spend a lot of time in each other's mouths, like a nasty Ouroboros of sorts. This was taken to an extreme once, where Cat crawls through their body, sheds his skin, and pops out through Dog's mouth like some sort of permutation of the Thing. All of this after they started doing awful, torturous things to each other's teeth. And they made this for kids. In another episode, Dog becomes insanely buff, like so much so that it reminds me a little bit of the beefy Joker fight from Arkham Asylum. And it's not just like Dog gets big and lives his life. He gets huge, takes power from Cat, and then goes on a crazy roid-style rage bender. Then there was that time that CatDog was forcibly turned into one of the most hideous clowns of all time. That was fun. CatDog is such a crazy creature to start with, and in classic Nickelodeon style, it gets taken to some weird nightmare fuel extremes. Kids have powerful imaginations and are more likely to accept whatever's thrown their way, but geez, imagine running into a real-life version of this hybrid hellion.
Coming in at number 4, we have Thomas the Tank Engine. Now, this is one of the most terrifying things I have ever seen. I absolutely hate it, so very much. Thomas the Tank Engine is an anthropomorphized fictional steam locomotive in the Railway series books and eventual TV spin-off series Thomas and Friends. He is a steam engine and has a number 1 painted on his side. The show features the train going on adventures with his fellow locomotives on the island of Soda. However, Thomas is apt to get into trouble by trying too hard to be, in his words, a really useful engine, attempting to do things that are best left to bigger engines. Other members of Sir Topham Hatt's Railway include Junior Engine Percy, Thomas's best friend, who is always willing to help, and Big Engine Gordon, the fastest largest and most powerful member of the team, who uses his superior strength to help smaller engines get out of trouble. Now, the train is nothing but friendly, but as we know, the internet is an incredibly dark place, and some folks out there have created monstrosities out of the train, including Tom Corbin, who posted this video to TikTok. The video seems to show Thomas chasing after the train controller, Sir Topham Hatt. However, Thomas is horrifically mutated and has spider legs stemming from both sides of his train as he chases down the man. Honestly, the more I watch, the scarier it gets. Coming in at number 3, we have The Fairly Odd Parents. The Fairly Odd Parents was an animated series on Nickelodeon which followed Timmy Turner, a 10-year-old boy with 2 fairy godparents named Cosmo and Wanda, and a malevolent 16-year-old babysitter named Vicky. Now, the godparents were not granting magical wishes, remain innocuous in their fishbowl, swimming around with tiny crowns atop their heads and wands in their hands. However, one artist turned this into something absolutely terrifying. I hate it, but I also can't look away. The picture titled, "I'm sorry Timmy, I forgot to feed your fish," which seemingly shows a dead Cosmo and a very much alive Wanda. However, she now has a human-looking face full of sinister intent. She has clearly eaten Cosmo. She got a little hungry, I guess. One Reddit user responded, "The artist of the post stated, I quote, 'It is a cruel world. Survival of the fittest is very much the rule rather than the exception. Unfortunately, Cosmo was very much not the fittest. He wasn't smart, particularly powerful, nor a good mate. Thus, he had no further value other than as dinner. Do not cry, Timmy. Cosmo isn't completely gone. He is now part of me, and judging by the fact you just finished your dinner, part of you as well.'" Jesus, that sent chills up and down my spine. Wanda's lost it, but I like Wanda like this. Coming in at number 2, we have everyone's favourite, Peppa Pig. Ever since the world discovered the actual height of Peppa Pig, nothing has been the same since. The world has become bleaker, and shows darker, with posts cropping up about the pig showing us how dark she can really be. Now, in late July of 2019, Twitter went crazy after accounts began to post about the height of Peppa Pig, which it turns out is 7 feet. That's right, if you go to Google and type in Peppa Pig height, this will come up. Now, if Peppa Pig is indeed over 7 feet tall, that puts her height right up there with Shaquille O'Neal, which is absolutely terrifying. But worse is yet to come. The real fear stems from the fact that Peppa isn't even the tallest pig in her family. Not even close. Her father is 14 feet and her mother 11 feet. How terrifying is that? However, let's move away from her height for a moment, because like I said, ever since this discovery, things have gotten dark for Peppa Pig, with drawings popping up of not just her resembling a giant, but of other dark, unsettling things as well. For example, this, which shows Peppa and the whole family. However, they're not pigs. They're humans. They're humans wearing pig masks on a farm, a slaughter farm, with the dad seemingly carrying a dead body and the mother holding a pie that likely consists of a dead body. The entire picture is unsettling and reminds me a little bit of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Honestly, this picture needs to be turned into a horror movie. I'd watch. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Garfield. Garfield is a beloved comic strip and children's cartoon that was originally created by Jim Davis. It chronicles the life of the title character Garfield the cat, John Arbuckle, his human owner, and Odie, the dog. Now, the first show starring the orange cat was Garfield and Friends, which premiered back in 1988 and ran up until 1994. Now, like the comic strip, the show followed the catastrophic comedy capers of the wisecrapping, nap-taking, and lasagna-loving cat Garfield. It was a hit, resulting in more spin-offs and even a movie. However, since the beginning of his creation, there have been dark theories surrounding the beloved cat, who now spans over 40 years. Now, one dark theory, which is actually more of a meme, is titled "I'm Sorry John," which refers to a series of Garfield-inspired artwork in which Garfield is depicted as a horror creature stalking his owner, with most of the art stating the words "I'm sorry John" and "I require lasagna." It became such a hit across the web that in 2018 the character was featured in the SCP Foundation as SCP-3166, which is absolutely crazy. Following that, on September 18th, 2018, horror artist William Burke posted a black and white drawing of the cat on Instagram. It depicted Garfield as a monster holding his owner John Arbuckle in his hands and demanding to be given lasagna. Another creation shows a rotund Garfield completely out of control with his eating habits, who has now resorted to cannibalism. In the sketch, he appears to resemble a walrus more than a cat, and I can't help but think back to the movie Tusk. that film still haunts me in all the right ways. Honestly, if this is how Garfield looked, maybe I would have given his show the time of day. Another drawing shows Garfield resembling a creature from The Thing, stating the words, "I'm sorry, John." Honestly, will someone just feed this cat lasagna so he doesn't kill us all? Coming in at number 5, we have I'm Sorry Donkey. Shrek. He is the titular protagonist of the Shrek franchise, Fiona's husband, Donkey and Puss's best friend, and the ogre triplets' father, not to mention the son-in-law of Queen Lillian and King Harold. That's a lot of a lot. Shrek is a green ogre with brown eyes. He wears a white long-sleeved tunic within his brown turtle-designed mini vest, brown pinstripe pants, and dark short boots with a rip-folded design in each side. Some backstory to the character though: Shrek was born to an unnamed father and mother. His father was known to be a cannibal, even trying to eat his own son about 30 years prior to when he rescued Fiona. He lived with his parents until his 7th birthday before moving out and living in a swamp in the middle of the forest by himself. Now posted to Reddit by Kira Queen Stando Power, we have quite the interesting take on Shrek. He has been transformed into a monstrous beast with multiple heads all connected via tentacles. He walks on his 4-clawed legs with a sharp tail at the end of his body. Honestly, Shrek would be a completely different story if Donkey stumbled across this Shrek swamp instead of the normal one. This is absolutely horrible. But you know what's worse? The replies to this post.
Coming in at number 4, we've got Angelica's worst nightmare. On that note, let's discuss another Nickelodeon nightmare. Remember Rugrats? I'd always thought the babies were a little funny looking, and some of the adults were hideous, of course, but none of that ever truly bothered me. Maybe the hairless Cynthia doll caused some negative reactions, but otherwise it's just a goofy kids show. Well, most of the time. See, Angelica is a bit of a loudmouth with a lot of opinions on things that her brain can't possibly comprehend. But what she does know is that babies are terrifying, especially when they can take over your life. As a parent, a baby can be either a blessing or a curse, depending on how you look at it. For a spoiled only child, it is the end of the glory days. And through these very same child-sized eyes, a baby sibling can be a terrifying monster, which is exactly what Angelica dreams up in her worst nightmare. Angelica's mother, Charlotte, brings up the possibility of having another baby, spooking the heck out of her daughter. After realizing that her folks will have less time to pay attention to the most important person, her, Angelica descends into a deep, dark nightmare. Babies. Who needs them, right? In this bad dream, nobody recognizes Angelica. They're all too focused on the new baby. And this baby is a real monster. First of all, it is ugly. And you might think that I have some sort of prejudice against babies and their looks, but no, this is just an especially ugly Rugrat. Then it speaks in the voice of a full-grown man, telling young Angelica that she's gotta skedaddle. From here, this little baby grows to the size of an adult and chases her around the house. The growth doesn't stop here either, and eventually it's a big enough baby to pick up a car and swallow Angelica whole. That is indeed monstrous. It's animated in such a stilted way too. It's an absolutely terrifying procession of images, and while it's a relatively common story for kids about to gain new siblings, it is wholly disturbing in many ways. Coming in at number 3, we've got Earth Mover. Now, there are plenty of different villains to choose from in the Batman universe. Some are scarier than others, with standouts like Scarecrow and Professor Pig really dialing up the horror. However, a lot of the biggest, baddest villains are left out or neutered in the animated versions of Batman. If you want grit or gore, head to the comics. If you want to work on your Bane impression, find Tom Hardy. But every once in a while, some real shit makes it to the animated series. This is especially apparent in Batman Beyond. Of course, the art style is much darker than a lot of the other comic book series, but the real horror comes from futuristic technology that is so often employed. Bane overdoses on his own venom, and the Joker leaves folks with terrifying grins, and there's all sorts of surprising body horror in Beyond. But it's hard to imagine a monster more terrifying than Earth Mover. At the climax of this story, we learn that a man that we once presumed was dead is actually totally dead. In fact, his daughter discovers his emaciated corpse. However, he's managed to become undead with the help of copious amounts of chemical waste. His remains are reanimated by some filthy materials, and he begins to rampage. Somehow the chemicals keep his spirit alive and attached to this rotten body and grant him additional powers as well. This corpse-ad even summons a giant monster made of earth to kidnap and hold his daughter hostage. The episode even ends with very little closure, so like all good horror movie villains, we don't know exactly what became of Earth Mover. His glowing green eyes will remain burned into my soul forever though. Coming in at number 2, we've got Larry da Bug. Forgive me if you don't recall this creature, but I had to bring him up. Technically, Larry himself isn't a cartoon, he's a puppet, but he introduces tale after terrifying tale in an anthology series that probably molded my young mind more than I realized. Larry DeBug is one of two hosts hanging out at Ted's Diner, a retro restaurant in the middle of nowhere. The other is a slimy maggot named Maurice, but I digress. This is the starting place for many of the animated tales of horror that make up the YTV series Freaky Story. This awful blue beetle has more stories than you can imagine, always prefaced with, "This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine." And while Larry himself might not be all that scary, at least if you're not afraid of puppets or bugs, the spooky potential is always there. The stories told range all over, from freaky misfortune to fiendish creatures to disgusting foods. Each one is animated in a unique style, and like with any anthology, there are gems and duds, but the possibility of watching something truly horrific was always there. And like Larry always says, just because they never happened doesn't mean they ain't true. And finally at number 1, we've got the walrus. Oh man. Picture this. You're a kid at home watching a lovely Swiss animated program on VHS. Or maybe you're at a friend's house and taking in some television. Either way, a friendly, sassy, adorable claymation penguin has your attention. It's Pingu. What a classic, right? Newt and all that jazz. You're learning about sharing and forgiveness and respecting your parents when all of a sudden something every child fears happens. Pingu gets lost. It's a dream sequence, but still. Kids don't know how to navigate. They freak out when they can't find their parents. This is already a scary situation. But for those of us who thought that would be the fearful peak, what happened next was almost unimaginable. While lost, out of nowhere, a gigantic walrus appears. And this is no cute, cuddly, mustachioed fellow. This is a terrifying, uncanny valley monstrosity. It's almost obscene how awful it looks. This walrus has big glossy eyes, a nasty mustache, and worst of all, human teeth. Compared to literally anything else in the Pingu universe, this walrus is the embodiment of all nightmares. Add in an evil, deep and dark laugh and you've got a monster that will never leave any child's mind. Why did they design it like this? Why did it appear out of nowhere? Why was this episode so upsetting to children everywhere? We may never know. But by all means, return to watching your cute penguin show with the knowledge that at any moment a revolting beast may climb up out of the background. My goodness. Most of these shows were largely palatable to all audiences, lulling viewers into a false sense of security before sucker punching them with scares. I'm sure plenty of neuroses found their root here.